Hey folks, it's Chuck Holton here. Thanks for watching the Hot Zone. I'm on vacation this week, and I just realized I didn't tell anybody I was leaving. I was going on vacation, so I thought I'd better at least let you know so you don't think that I just dropped off the face of the earth. Taking a couple weeks off here in West Virginia at my lodge, my farm out here, and doing the things that I enjoy doing most on vacation, which is not answering my phone, not going indoors, and puttering around the farm like any old man worth his salt. So that's what I've been doing for the last few days, and I'll continue for the next couple of weeks. So don't expect to hear a lot from me. My idea of a vacation is uh, a week without power, where nobody can call me, a week at my house. So I'm gonna stay here for a couple of weeks, and I've got a couple of things that I want to talk about the recruiting challenges the military is facing, and maybe make some commentary about Ukraine also because that's kind of an issue. But I just wanted to, I was thinking about it. We just had a family reunion here, and these young people, um, we have about 40 people come every other year and stay at the farm for 4 or 5 days together. Just have a great time. I mean, we've been doing this for like 12 years, and it's just fantastic. It's that most of the kids that started coming here when they were little have grown up now and are starting to come with their own spouses. And by the next time we have one of these, we're going to have some of our grandkids here. So we just enjoy that so much. It's so nice. Um, the older people that are here, we come from all over the country, and a lot of people really don't know each other that well. We're all extended family. This is on my wife's side, so but a lot of people, the newer folks and the in-law kids that are coming, they don't know the older folks. They don't know the stories of the people that are here. And so I noticed a couple times during this reunion, getting questions from younger people about me, like, "Well, what do you do for a living?" And I realized they don't even know what I do for a living. They don't even know anything really about me. So I thought, there's probably a lot of people, and my kids especially, who don't know a lot of the stories of the places that I've been and the things that been able to do over 20 years as a war correspondent. So I thought I would just take a minute and tell you a story, and maybe I'll do this from time to time as kind of a bonus or something. Just tell a story of something that happened to me in my career before I had the podcast. If you look back on the previous episodes of this podcast, it's been going on now for about 3 years. You'll see times when I was attacked on the border of Venezuela. You'll see times when I got shot at in Syria. You'll get stories like that I was making the podcast, so you heard it almost in real time. But there are lots and lots of things that I've been able to do over the course of my career that happened before the podcast started that are pretty good stories. And so I'll just tell you one right now about a time that I went to Congo. This is DR Congo in Central Africa. And I had just come from Ethiopia on a different shoot. This is a CBN trip. And I flew to Congo. I got there, was sick, didn't feel good at all. But you couldn't fly into Congo Goma, where I was going. So you had to fly into Kigali, Rwanda, next door, which it's a several-hour taxi ride from Kigali down to Goma, the border. So I normally, as a hard and fast rule, I never take an offered taxi uh, because if somebody, it's a good way to get kidnapped. There are a lot of times when uh, people will be a fake taxi. They might have somehow found out you were coming, And so they, will be waiting for you there. And when you walk out of the airport, they say taxi. And if you get in with them, you might not end up where you want to go. So I never take an offered taxi. This time I walked out of the airport and I just kind of fell into the first taxi I saw and said, take me to Goma. And the guy said, okay, and drove off. And I fell asleep and slept for like the whole trip. Like he could have taken me anywhere. He could have robbed me blind, but was not in very good shape. So I got to Goma, and I had been calling. I didn't know anybody in Goma, but I had a friend who had been there once, and I'd called him and asked him if he knew of anybody I could use for a fixer and a translator, a driver, things like that. And he gave me a guy's name. So I had called this guy, and the guy had agreed to help me out. So I was calling him as I got close to Goma and letting him know I was on my way. And he said, fine, I'm waiting for you just across the border as soon as you get here. And I'll take you to a place, give you a place to stay and everything. When I got to the border, however, the taxi dropped me off with my rucksack and drove away. And it was about 5:30 in the afternoon. And the border crossing was closed. Gate was down, soldiers were there. And there's like a no man's land of a couple hundred yards before the other side. And I was like, oh man, I got here too late. So I called the guy and said, I can't make it over there. I don't know what to do. I'm not going to make it because the border's closed. And he said, oh, it's no big deal. Just cross across anyway. And I said, there's soldiers here. They got the gates closed. I mean, I'm not going to. He said, look, I've been waiting for you all day long. I'm here. I've got everything taken care of. It's not a big deal. Just walk across, and I'm 200 yards away. I'll meet you on the other side. And I said, oh, man. So there wasn't really any place for me to stay in Goma. I mean, on the Rwanda side. It's right on the shores of this big lake, and there wasn't a lot there. So I was like, oh, and so I texted Connie and I said, I'm crossing illegally into Congo, pray, and put my rucksack on and just started humping right down the road to cross the border. And I walked right past the soldiers and was like, hey, how you doing? Acted like I knew where I was going. That'll get you a long way, as acting like you know where you're going. And then they were kind of like, hey, but they didn't stop me. So I kept on going, walked through the no man's land and crossed into Goma. And when I got there, right there at the border crossing, there were a couple hundred people just milling around, and it was kind of chaotic, as everything in Africa typically is. And then I realized, I don't know what this guy looks like that I'm supposed to meet. And then I thought, well, wait a minute, I'm the only white guy here, so I'll just stand here and he'll find me. So I stood there for a few minutes, and sure enough, here comes this guy who walks up to me, and it's a bald guy with a big scar on his head. And he walks up to me and he says, are you Norwegian? And that kind of surprised me. I wasn't expecting that question. And I said, well, my wife is Norwegian. And he said, oh, okay, I'm your guy. He said, good to meet you. Yeah, come on, get your stuff. So he took me over to his car, and I thought, what was that all about? That was weird. So I got in the car with him. He took me off to a nunnery on the lakeshore where a bunch of black French-speaking nuns live. And I guess he figured that was the safest place I could be. And he put me up there. There weren't any hotels to speak of in Goma. So I stayed at this nunnery, and the nuns kind of kept to themselves. The next morning, they brought me breakfast, or they brought me down to a place where they brought breakfast. And they set a pot of hot water, like one of those thermos kind of things. So you push the button and pour the hot water. And when I pushed the button, like 15 cockroaches came running out of the water carafe, and I was like, yeah! I don't like cockroaches at all. Cockroaches are not cool. And so I sort of lost my appetite there. The guy came and picked me up a little while later, and I had been afraid to turn on the lights in my hotel, or well, whatever, my room, because it faced the lake, And when I got there, it was still light. The sun was just going down, and I saw these boats full of armed black guys. I don't know, armed Congolese. I don't know if they were soldiers or police or militia or bandits or what, but they were zooming along out on the lake. And I thought maybe it would be good if they didn't know I was here. So I never turned the lights on in my room. I just sort of hid out in there the whole time I was there. Uh, the guy that I was with, it was a Saturday when he picked me up, and he had said, "Hey, do you want to come to church with me tomorrow?" And I said, "Yeah, sure. Oh, I'd love to." And so he came the next morning, picked me up, drove me to church. We walk into this church, and it's like uh, 800 people jumping up and down, screaming and shouting and singing and dancing and everything. And I was like, wow, this is awesome. So I kind of went to take a seat in the back so I could just sort of watch. And the guy kind of looked at me and said, "What are you doing?" "No, you're preaching." And I was like, "What?" And he said, "No, you're preaching." And so he took me right up to the front on the stage and put me up there. And I had about 3 minutes to prepare a sermon for 800 people in Swahili, translated. I had a translator. I don't know what the translator said. I'm not even sure what I said, but it wasn't a very long sermon. And he probably just told everybody to clap and cheer, because they did a lot of clapping and cheering. Whenever I said whatever I said, anything, they just clapped and cheered. Very interesting time there. Really enjoyed the church service, and it made some good contacts with the pastor and everybody that I used to get interviews and get access to things later as I was there. Then for lunch, I said, "Hey, you want to go out and get some lunch at a restaurant or anything?" He said, "Restaurant?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "We have a restaurant." I said, "You mean there's only one restaurant in Goma?" He said, "We have only one restaurant you would want to go to." So I said, "Okay, well, let's go there." So he drives me over to this. It was a hotel, um, and it had a restaurant in there. And he dropped me off at the gate, and he said, "I'll wait here. You go get some food." And I said, "No, come on in with me." And he said, "Oh no, I can't go in there." I said, "Why not?" He said, "You see this scar on my head? The people that gave it to me are in there." I said, "The owners of the restaurant?" He said, "No." He said, "This is the place where all of the warlords come to meet their mistresses." And so I, you know, got stopped at a checkpoint one time, but that was run by some of this warlords guys, and they hit me with a machete on my head and left me in the ditch for dead. Told me the whole story, and he was like, "So I'm not going in there, but you can go in there and get a pizza or whatever, and then I'll wait for you out here." I said, "Okay, I'll bring you some pizza." So I go into this thing, and sure enough, there's these guys in there with like military dress uniforms on, but they're nothing makes sense. They've got American medals and British medals, and it's like they just went shopping at a metal store and just bought all sorts of stuff and just stuck it all over their uniform. Dad had no idea where anything was actually supposed to go. No name tag, no anything, and just looking as fancy as they can, just trying to look like a general. And they're there with these young, scantily clad women having their meal. And they all kind of look at me, give me the hairy eyeball as I come in. So I sat down and ordered a pizza, and then decided I'd probably better wash my hands. This is Africa after all. So I went in the bathroom, and there was a bodyguard for one of these warlords in the bathroom with an AK, very young guy, wearing a uniform. And he was standing there with his AK, and nobody else was in the bathroom. He was just standing there. I guess his job was to guard the bathroom. And I walked in, and he looked at me and immediately said in English, "Give me all your money." And I kind of looked at him, and I don't know why, but just he was so young, and he had a uniform with nothing on it. And so I said, "Are you a private in the Congolese army?" And he said, "Yes. Now give me all your money." And he started sort of fingering his trigger on his AK-47. And I said, "Listen, I'm a sergeant with the U.S. Army. So if you want to rob me, you're going to have to get somebody that outranks me. I am not going to give my money to a private. So go get somebody that has a higher rank." And he kind of looked around a little bit, and then he said, well, give me your sunglasses then. And I said, no. And I just walked out, never did wash my hands. I have no idea why I did that. That just, I guess because, I mean, I was a sergeant in the U.S. military, and there's no way I'm getting rolled by a private. And since there was only that one guy in there, it was kind of close quarters, I probably could have overpowered him. But I wasn't thinking of that at all. I just was thinking, there's no way I'm getting robbed by a private. I mean, if the guy had been a major, I probably would have given him my money. I had quite a bit of cash on me, actually. But so, so the rest of the trip, got the trip done, went to refugee camp, terrible, terrible refugee camp. It's almost all children. It's like the daycare center from hell. They said all the adults had died of AIDS. And there were just, every morning, there would be a little pile of bodies outside the camp of the kids who had died during the night. It was just heartbreaking. And with there were 100,000 people in this camp, and 80% of them were kids. So it's like, what can you even do? I mean, how can I could give my power bar to this kid, and he'll get his arms ripped off by all the other kids. And I was saying, Lord, what can I do? I mean, I can't handle this. How can I help? And I just felt this quiet voice say, you can tell their story. And I realized that's the best I can do. That's the most I can do in a situation like that, is I can tell their story to the world, and then maybe the world can do something to help them. So 4 days later, I go with my driver, and he takes me back to the border crossing. And he says, okay, you're going to walk across and catch a bus and then go back to Kigali. And I said, well, thank you very much. And he said, we'll give my best to your family back in Norway. And I said, why do you keep talking about Norway? I'm an American. I'm from the United States. And his eyes got real big, and he said, what? He said, I was supposed to pick up a Norwegian guy. So hopefully the Norwegian guy got picked up by the guy that I was supposed to be with, and I was just with the wrong guy for 4 days. So I walked back out to the border crossing, and then I realized, wait a minute, I never got my passport stamped when I came into Congo. So how am I going to get out of here? And this is going to be bad. So I go to the border checkpoint, and I walk in. The lady takes my passport and looks at it, and she looks at me, and she looks at my passport, and she looks at me, and I'm like, oh no. And she says, open your bag. So I put my bag on the table. I open it up. She rifles through my bag. Now I've got, $15,000 worth of camera gear in my bag, and batteries, and a lot of expensive stuff in there. And she's going through there, and I'm thinking, this is going to be expensive. And then all of a sudden she reaches in and she pulls out a Snickers bar, and she looks at me, gives me this look, and goes like that. And I went like that, and kind of said, go ahead. And so she put the Snickers bar in her pocket and zipped up my bag and said, thank you very much. Have a nice day. So I got out of Congo without a passport stamp, but it cost me a Snickers bar, and made it back to Rwanda, went back to the airport, and went home. So that's my story of my trip to Congo. This is back in about 2011, or I think 2011, something like that. Amazing trip. And there we go. So I hope you liked the story, and I will maybe do some more of these. If you like it, put a comment and let me know. So, maybe we'll do that from time to time. And I do actually have video of all this, but I'm in West Virginia. The video is all in Panama, so I can't put a whole lot of video on this to show you. But I hope you enjoyed it, and thanks for watching. I'm Chuck Holton. We'll see you later.